So thank you everyone for coming back in. Now, Helen, you've got a question for David Barrett.
Yes, David, am I right in saying we have counters on both doors, so we would have an idea of the traffic flows?
Yes, we certainly do, and they're reported quarterly through the Civic Centre quarterly reports, and we've achieved an increase in the last quarter to the previous one. That's going up to the February council meeting. From memory, don't quote me if I'm 100% wrong, but it's around 25,000 a year come through the building.
So that's actually pretty good. That's actually very, very good. And it's probably up, David, would you agree that that's probably up in the higher end of civic centres, or you're not quite sure?
It's certainly for a civic centre in a location such as this, definitely. Other centres that are in more populous areas will have higher visitation, but certainly for where we are, definitely up there.
Yeah, so I think there's lots of people coming and going, but they come in for different reasons. Some people come in to use the bathrooms because they're the best bathrooms in the town centre, and they're clean and they're beautiful. And there's also a family changing area there. So and that's won an award. So people come a lot just to do that. And then there's the library, and then there's the Cultural Heritage Centre, and then there's the exhibitions, and then there might be an event as well. And then there's us. Oh yeah, council uses this centre quite a lot as well. So it's quite useful.
But as I think it was Deputy Mayor Shanks said, I mean, I regularly meet people here. This is my preferred place to meet a member of the public in an open space. So yeah, it's serving us as well as elected members.
Yeah, so lots of people have meetings here. Lots of people do tutoring downstairs. I've seen people do tutoring down on the lower ground floor. I've seen people read newspapers. I've seen people meet. I meet lots of people here because it's so central and it's easy. Or at a cafe, I often go to a cafe as well. So there's lots of opportunity. And I think that the discussion tonight's been really interesting. I think there's been lots of ideas. Thank you, Louise, for coming along and sharing your ideas with us and engaging. I think that it's been really helpful and useful. And I think your experience in catering and your experience as a businesswoman in the town is quite valuable. So thank you for coming along and helping us trying to understand where we go next. No worries. Ethan?
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple of quick questions. Going off what Councillor Hennessy said about the people that actually use the space, and this is probably up to us as elected members, but to actually come down during those particular hours that we're thinking of what we want to use it for and see what the clientele currently is, talking to people, see what they actually want. I love the idea of meeting people here, talking to community members as elected members. But see, the reason for me why I would be not opposed is because there's no coffee. and you know, maybe I'm a bit addicted to coffee, but if there was that if there was, you know, that's the location. But seeing who uses the library, what do they want? Do they want coffee? Do they want sandwiches? Do they want hot food? Or do they just want more light? You know, maybe numbers are good.
Do they want better seating arrangements?
Yes.
You know, it's a good point.
Or do they not?
A bit of colour. And just a better arrangement of some of the furniture there, because you know, it is cluttered, I think. But you know, some people won't have a problem with that. You know, there's lots of seats, so there's lots of places for people to sit. So if you remove seats, are we upsetting people when we remove seats?
Yeah.
If you remove seats, you upset people.
Exactly. And some people might go, actually, I don't care. And that's fine, of course, but to probably get that spectrum of the users and actually a bit deeper, I think is important to how we proceed. The other thing is, just initially when the Civic Centre was redeveloped, was there what was the reasoning, I guess, behind the kitchen not being light commercial?
I think it was originally going to be commercial, but then it got downgraded because of the cost. Yeah, there was a significant cost to the redevelopment, so there had to be corners cut, and you know that's a decision that was made. You know, we needed to do there was a huge extra cost for the stonework that hadn't been factored in. There was lead found on the paint on the front, both fronts of the buildings. Then there was the surprise discovery of the balcony on this building that hadn't been properly constructed and in fact didn't have a floor and needed to be extensively reconstructed because it wasn't properly constructed in the first place. So lots of surprises, which added extra cost. So what do you do? So I think that, you know, there was a balance there. And I think that this was always going to come, you know, what do we do? Do we put a dishwasher in? Do we just do that? Do we do other things? I don't know. That's something for council staff to pull together and to provide us with some expert advice, you know, going forward. Louise.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 2 points. I would be very happy to liaise with Ben Stokes to have a visit down to his commercial kitchen for anybody who would like to come. He was most welcoming about that. And just on the layout of the cafe area, hesitate to call it cafe area, but that seating area, it might pay to look at some hotel lobbies. They actually manage to have really nice seating areas that are quite private and people feel quite comfortable meeting people there and sitting in an area that they don't feel looks as if it's sort of had everybody's leftovers put there as furniture. So just having a look at the way that commercial places like hotels handle a public space like that could be a way of looking at it.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we've got more. I've got Councillor Solomon and then Deputy Mayor.
I'll just make it short, but I think there's something which is starting to emerge. I think from some people, what some people are saying is that viewing the space as a whole rather than looking at individually that the space we're originally talking about, that cafe. And I think there's real merit in starting to look at the space as a whole and the different uses that people have, and that people might be entering for one thing, but they don't necessarily use the space for just one thing. And having a space which is dynamic and allows that transition between different services and things which are available, I think it's really a good way to start looking at it.
Deputy Mayor.
So I guess my question would be to where to from here. I mean, we've had some great ideas and, you know, with any development comes cost, as Councillor Koch and Hughes have rightfully pointed out. But to make informed decisions, we need to understand those costs and those social benefits and what we're willing to invest in and what we're not willing to invest in. I think it'd be a shame to not utilise the space to its best potential, because I think we've tried it twice now and we've pretty much found out that the cafe business doesn't work. And I really like the idea of, you know, promoting rental of the space and what that looks like and how that model works, while also adapting some training opportunities there as well. I'd love to know how they do it at Gawler High, for example. You know, I'd love to send, you know, David to go and have a look at that kitchen and take some pictures and sort of report back on what they have.
I've been down there and they're more than happy to show people around.
Yeah, so that'd be great.
In the old building right at the top, right near Para Road.
Yeah.
And it's not flash.
No, it's not. And that's sort of my point is, like, you know, we're talking about A-grade facilities here, but what can we achieve with what we've got and what is the bare minimum we can add to it to be a comparable kitchen to say this model that is operating quite successfully as a part of an education pathway. So before we start getting scared off with the Rolls Royce, let's look at what we can look at. I mean, Louise pointed out perfectly, there are opportunities to invest in some secondhand, very good equipment for utilising this space. And it's not too different to what other hospitality businesses do every single day. So, yeah, I think there's some definitely information we need to unpack. And one final thing, I'd love to be able to see the plans. And obviously we would have had like an airflow consultant come on board, an engineer, that would have been able to figure out and specify that particular range hood. It'd be great to know what the capacity of that range hood factually is as well, to see how far we can actually push that infrastructure without upgrading. Because there are other options around the space. We're not the only ones to do a commercial kitchen in the lowest level of a complex build. So yeah, just definitely questions to be asked.
Oh, thank you very much for those comments. Now, councillor Kosh, you had your hand up.
Like, for me, I'd actually like to see all this looked at. I mean, everyone's got some good ideas, but it comes down to what can actually happen, what reality it can happen. It's the cost, it's the risk that there's an issue with competitive neutrality. There's a whole range of things. Like we had an audit and risk committee meeting last night. Risk is really important. You know, we need to take that into account. That's important. So we really need to look at it broadly and just, you know, do all the investigations. So we've got a baseline start of what's actually realistically can happen in there, and a bit of a budget, because it could be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, or just not viable, because we're looking, you know, potentially you're looking at a commercial site. Now, competitive neutrality just comes screaming at me straight away.
Okay.
You know, it's not social inclusion when you're just renting it out to a commercial caterer. There's an issue. Anyway, let's look at.
Thank you for those comments as well. I'm going to go back to David because I'm going to actually wrap it up now. I think we've talked a lot. We've got lots of ideas. Either Henry or David, the next steps and what does that look like?
So thank you. Just before I do that, I wanted to clarify my comment about numbers. The 22,000 refers to a quarter attendance, not an annual. So it's 4 times that.
Oh,
Apologies.
I thought it was annual.
No, that's quarter attendance.
Oh, so it's
in the
100.
quarter reports, around 100 a year.
100,000 a year.
Yeah. Next steps is reporting through to council. So obviously we'll, the intention was to present a report through to the February council meeting to wrap up the outcomes of this workshop, but not to have decisions made as to what we're doing, because based on noting reports that we've discussed, and the next steps from here would be to investigate all of those options and permutations that we've considered, and then come back to council with further reporting on the costs, the business cases and all those sorts of things, because we won't have that within the next 2 weeks. So
no, absolutely.
It could take a while, because if we are looking at investing in commercial infrastructure upgrades to the centre, we'll need to do designs and all those sorts of things to make sure that all happens, and that's engaging with consultants and working through that process. So it could be a few months away before we get to an outcome in terms of where we're going.
So that's a few that we get an update report in February, just noting that we've had a discussion and these are the ideas that we've discussed. That's pretty much a noting report, and then staff will go away and do the detailed sort of work and bring that back, but that will take a few months.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, all right.
So, Mayor, could I ask, in the interim, were the ideas that Henry was suggesting, will some of that be included in the report, please, or is that going to be done differently? The idea of what we do in those, whatever period that is.
So through the chair, we've already got some temporary activation occurring over the fringe period, which covers February, March, through the recent expression of interest process. And then beyond that, we can certainly talk to local community groups and organisations around their potential and around activation until we get to an end game. So yeah, certainly over the next few months, we can work that through.
All right, thank you. I think we'll wrap this up now. Thank you everyone for coming. I think it's been a really good discussion, lots of ideas, very different ideas, one spectrum to the other and somewhere in between. So I think that thank you, David, for pulling it all together for us, and thank you, Louise, for coming along and engaging with us and providing your fantastic ideas. So I think we'll